All right, hello and welcome everyone. Doug here with thelincolnlist.com. I want to welcome you back to another weekly edition of Stock Market Mutterings, where I'll do my best to try to find you some quality trade setups for the week. This is for the week ending on April 13th. As always, if you need help with your trading, feel free to visit thelincolnlist.com, click on the Trade Room tab, and trade with us live. So we begin with the market, and what can I say? Just a week ago, we were sitting there thinking about that 200 moving average, the doom and gloom clouds covering this atmospheric earth, all was to be shattered. And since that moment, since last Friday, this thing took off and has not looked back. You have like 6 straight days of green. You blew through the 50 moving average. So if we kind of back up, what I was thinking is, once the week started, how would we handle that 50 moving average? Would that be resistance again? And then we would possibly trade back down to the 200. It just blew right through that on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, took out the highs from the 18th. If you look at the bottom chart there, from April 18th, that was the last pivot high that began what was a couple of weeks sell-off and a few tests of that 200 moving average. So here we set. Now we always say, well, okay, hindsight's 2020. What are we gonna do, man? What are we gonna do, dudes? How are we gonna make some money in this stuff? Are we going higher? Are we going lower? Well, I'm gonna try to answer that for you. You have to think, okay, that you've had a hella run, especially in some of these tech names like Nvidia and Apple. I mean, these things have gone berserk, $30, $40 runs in some of these. I mean, they need a damn break. You can't get heavily long up here when these stocks have made this kind of move. Now, that doesn't mean that it won't go higher just because that's what I said. And a pullback is what's logical. That doesn't mean that's what you're going to get. It's more difficult. We're in this money to capture premium and to capture alpha and to manage risk. And when you're in situations like this, we talk about value. Where's the value going to be? It would be nice to get some back testing. If you're looking for a healthy market, you've got to think about back testing. Let's say that doesn't happen. Let's first start, and we'll talk about the upside. You have where you're pretty much sitting right here, takes you back to March 19th. You have a high here around, I think it's 273. Don't quote me to the penny. That's 273 to 274. You may see a run up to the high 273s into the low 274s. I mean, you can't rule out the way this thing's behaving that maybe you actually make a run to 280. I mean, who's to say you can't? I don't think that's a possibility this week, but I thought once we crossed onto the 200 moving average, we was going to get smokied. We didn't get smokied. We actually ended up all the way back up here in just a short amount of time. So remember, as quickly as it can go up, it can go back down. If you start moving down, of course, the logical spot is this 50 moving average, which now sits at about, just say 267.5. You can get down somewhere around that and you'll see some stability, but there was something different about this that I just want to highlight. It's not always about numbers. It's about what's the data telling you? What's the vibe? Let's go with that word. What's the vibe? This one felt different because this was so reminiscent of what we saw into 2017. I mean, we had a rally. It wasn't too long ago. We bounced off. Here, let's go back and look at the chart. April 6th. We bounced off the 200 moving average. We ran 6 or 7 straight days, and up to the 16th, it covered about the same amount of ground, but it didn't do it that way. It was up, it was down, it was not clean. The volatility was off the charts. You were getting washouts in the morning of $10 followed by $18 ramps. I mean, crap was all over the place. A little different. I said a couple weeks ago I thought the volatility was trying to come out of the market. It did this week. Now, I can't say it's going to guarantee that way, but let's watch this thing. If you're looking for longs, you're kind of in a tough spot here. You have a little bit of upside, maybe another point or two. If things really get freaky, maybe 280. But I think we need a back test down to the 50. It would be healthier long term, and there would be a little bit more opportunity. So let's just kind of move on. We're done market jabbering. Let's talk about actual stock trades. I first present to you Trade Desk, TTD. What the hell, man? What the hell? $22. 44% almost on Friday after earnings. 44%. That is huge. Of course, you're looking at this point, possibly shorting this stock. It's a little thin, danger warning, yes, of course. When I'm saying shorting, I'm not just saying I want to short it just because it's up 44%. That's not a guarantee it's going to come down, but I want to look for the right spot. If you get a little bit of vert in there, maybe a follow through early on Monday, maybe a FOMO rally or something like that, and it presses this thing up towards 80, might be a good spot. Or other than that, you'll just have to look intraday for pivots and places where you can manage risk and try it. But I think this is the value to this play is probably going to be a little bit more to the downside. It's just something I want to watch. On the flip side of that, I have to say any big flushes is probably a buy on this, but I definitely want to look for this TTD as a possible short. Staying in the T's, how about a little trip? Here's another earnings winner, trip. Two trades I want to give you here that may happen on this trip. One is you got a rejection right now that's working, albeit a very small and minor rejection here at 49.50s. You look at this daily chart down the bottom. Got a couple of wicks there, a couple of pulls. You have a pivot here, and this is why I'm talking about get yourself a pivot, get yourself an area of reference to where you can manage risk. So simply put, if you felt it was going to go up here, you could short it at 49.20 here, stop at 49.50, and that's your trade, right? That's your trade. And try to get down to 47.50s or maybe even 45 on the fade. You manage your risk, right? That's what we're talking about earlier when I said TTD. Look for a pivot like that where you can get a risk in mind and go for the trade. Now, if this thing shows weaknesses and continues to reject off of that, that's the exact trade I would be looking for here, is try to fade this bad boy. However, if it turns around and it consolidates for 2 or 3 days at 49.50s or holds the 49s and builds and holds the majority of this earnings gap, then takes out this 49.50 to 50 bucks, it's a long. I mean, that thing would be a long. So this thing could be a two-way player throughout the week. You know, you reject off of 49.50, you fail, market gets weak, you see some pressure, you got a good risk to reward play right here in front of you. If that doesn't work and everything is strong and tight, you see a flag, then you long this thing. Now let's get to the big boys. Let's get to the big boys. Let me have a sip of whiskey since we're talking about the big. I'm still going from happy hour. All right. NVIDIA. Whew. NVIDIA. Okay. I'd like to take a look at possibly shorting the same thing. Just because it's up a hell of a lot doesn't mean that it's going to come down. However, when I look across the beta names, you look at NVIDIA, you look at Apple. Hey, I like these companies. And if you're a long-term investor, no biggie. But, you know, you make $35, $40 runs on some of this stuff. And if the market does any back testing, this thing has a lot of room to go. I mean, you're talking about a dozen full of dollars, maybe $20 of retracement, and the chart would still be bullish. So, I mean, you got an enormous amount of range, and this is always NVIDIA, Tesla, Netflix, Apple, Google, Amazon. These are two-way players every day. You could be long in the morning and short in the afternoon, short in the morning, long in the afternoon. I mean, you can actually long the thing and turn around and flip it and short at the same time. I mean, these things have crazy range in them. Again, looking for a pivot on this. I still wouldn't rule out. I mean, if people want to get nutty out there and run it through 260, who knows? It could go another 30 bucks, but kind of thinking about maybe shorting this one back down to the 10 moving average. We're just going to have to see how it lines up through the rest of the week. Now Tesla here, though, I just mentioned, a little bit different scenario here. The thing about Tesla was that you had a really legitimate breakout, and I was tweeting about this breakout, and I bought this breakout. And you got a little bit of money. I mean, look at it right here. This 309.50 was so huge. And it was just tapping on it for like 4 straight days. It finally breaks it on Thursday, and it goes. And you're like, yes, yes. And then all of a sudden it starts falling. You're like, no, 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 no. And that's trading, right? Sometimes you're like, okay, cool. And then you're like, okay, not cool. And then it just rolls over, and it sells off. And then Friday, it's like now you're back to what it was before, that every single rally in this thing is getting sold off. Every pump Musk comes out with, it gets sold off. It can't get out of its own way now. You're now reaching this 10 moving average on the daily chart and the last bit of cluster that you have down at the bottom, which is 300s. I think if you start tossing 300s, you're going to go a little bit lower with this. However, you gotta wait for the setup, guys, on this one. You really got to wait for the setup on this one, because if you short down on the hole at low a day, a lot of times it'll just fire back up $6, $7. I mean, it's got mad range. You got to look for your pivots. You got to look for your spots. You got to be able to manage your risk. But I think overall, you start losing 300, you start closing under 300, you're going to be looking back at possibly 280. It's a pretty big level to watch. So something's going to happen. It either holds it and fires back up, or it loses it. So anyway, that's going to do it for me. I hope I gave you a couple ideas out there that could turn into something good for you. If you need to trade them, you need some more specific guidance when it comes to trading this stuff, visit thelincolnlist.com and trade with us. Until the next Stock Market Mutterings, trade well this week and take care.